guys, it's me, Beau, back once again with another cult movie review. Thanks for checking out the video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the 1978 zombie horror movie Dawn of the Dead. This movie has been a personal favourite of mine ever since I first watched it back many years ago as a teenager. I remember I had the film on VHS and it had this really cool green artwork cover. Then a couple of years after that, the movie got transferred onto DVD with tons of special features. And yeah, it's just been a movie that I've kind of continually revisited every so often. Recently, actor David Emger, who played the character Stephen in this movie, sadly passed away at the age of 77. After seeing some of the tributes online dedicated to him, it got me thinking about Dawn of the Dead. I rewatched the trailer on YouTube and came across a channel that had actually uploaded the full extended version of the film in HD. Anyways, it had been a few years since I had seen this movie and thought it was kind of the perfect time to go back and check it out again. So the film, which was written and directed by George A. Romero, was the follow-up to his 1968 feature Night of the Living Dead. Like the first installment, we get an outbreak of zombies attacking people. This time around though, we get a whole new cast of characters to follow on their journey to survive. Actors Ken Foree and Scott Reininger played Peter and Roger respectively, two active duty cops on the run, along with Stephen and Francine, played by David Emger and Galen Ross. We see the group escape the chaos in the city by stealing a news helicopter and heading north. They're evading authorities and stumble upon an abandoned shopping mall. With the chopper low on fuel and the group being exhausted, they decide to take refuge inside. They stay for a number of months waiting for the situation to improve, but things get complicated when Roger gets bitten by one of the zombies. As soon as Roger gets bitten, he knew the game was up, and so did the rest of the group. It was just a matter of time before the infection spread and Roger would fully turn. Separately, an army of bikers led by Tom Savini invade the shopping centre looking for fresh supplies. Once the bikers gain access to the shopping mall, they start looting and completely wreck the place. All the zombies in the surrounding area follow the bikers in and all hell breaks loose. The Stephen character was ultimately responsible for the group's downfall as he initiates a gunfight with the bikers, drawing attention to himself and Peter. Stephen got emotional seeing the mall being taken over by the bikers, but it wasn't his to begin with. Yet we see Stephen get so consumed with anger over it, like as if he owned the place. And if Stephen hadn't have initiated the gunfight with the bikers, the trio would have had a better chance of evading them altogether. No doubt it was poor decision making on Stephen's part. Having the character make such a stupid mistake at such a pivotal moment was Romero's way of exposing the psychological effects Stephen was experiencing at the time. Roger and Peter were trained police officers who had been exposed to heavy violence before the zombie outbreak occurred. Stephen, on the other hand, was just a helicopter pilot. He was a civilian, so having him endure what he did would have put a serious strain on his mental health. You know, I have to say, Dawn of the Dead features a strong central cast of actors. They all had wonderful on-screen chemistry together. Each character had an important part to play in the story, and the actors themselves portrayed their characters as likable, and everybody fit their role like a glove. The writing was sharp, and none of the line delivery felt forced. I thought actress Galen Ross in particular did a great job in portraying Francine as a quick-thinking, capable woman not afraid to stand up for herself. Francine knew her strengths and her weaknesses, and in a way she kind of is the heart and soul of the movie, really. As much as this is a zombie horror flick, the movie also contains a lot of social commentary. The film quite cynically shows how society would basically crumble in a situation such as a zombie apocalypse. At the start of the film, we see the chaos going on in the TV newsroom where Francine works. You've got people shouting at one another, nobody can agree on anything. Francine argues with her boss over the information that's on screen being incorrect, while her boss is more concerned about getting viewers to tune into the station. This film critiques the mismanagement of such a crisis, and it does kind of make you wonder, how would our own society cope if such a thing ever happened? Later on in the movie, there's a really haunting scene where we see a news reporter talking about the zombie outbreak and the possibility of a viral infection, and starts talking about how scientists may seek out a vaccine to treat the outbreak. Watching this movie again post-COVID, the scene holds a lot more weight given what has happened. Almost like creepy foreshadowing or something. There was also George A. Romero's take on modern day consumerism. The zombies that we see in the mall represent the materialistic masses as they flock to the shops to buy items they don't really need. The zombies are the mindless consumers, and this point was made rather obvious by some of the dialogue we heard in the film. Once the group arrive on the roof of the mall, they discover the zombies walking around, and Francine questions why they're there. Her partner Stephen responds by saying that the mall was likely an important place in their lives. Now I have to take a moment to mention the actor and makeup artist Tom Savini. Not only did he contribute with the makeup and special effects, but Savini also delivered a very memorable performance as the biker Blades. Savini's practical effects that he was able to produce was quite extraordinary for its time. Also, taking into account the limited budget that Savini was working with, also the on-set improvisations needed to fulfill the visuals that we saw. It was a lot of work, and Savini was truly a invaluable piece to this project. Savini raised the bar, and rightfully so, made a name for himself in the industry. I have to say, I really enjoyed the scene with the police raid on the hotel at the beginning of the film. Residents from inside the building had been harboring their dead relatives, now zombies. Police cars and SWAT teams all show up outside the building and basically begin shooting their way in. This was actually where we were introduced to Roger and Peter before they made their escape out of the city. Once inside, people are running, police are shooting, heads are exploding. It was absolute insanity. At one point, we even see a young rookie cop get cornered by a zombie. Panic sets in when his gun becomes jammed, and suddenly this dead corpse is slowly crawling towards him. We get these close-ups of the panic on his face as he's struggling to pull out his other gun. You know, it's quite a scary moment. And eventually the cop is able to shoot this dead corpse crawling towards him, but seconds later he takes his own life. You know, that was a close call, but the officer survived, so you think everything's going to be okay. The next, he turns the gun on himself, and I guess the character must have been in complete shock, not thinking. It was a really dark moment, interwoven with all this chaotic blood splatter. I mentioned the limited budget already, but I want to give credit to director George A. Romero for delivering such an ambitious project on such a limited budget. When you think about it, Dawn of the Dead had a much larger scope compared to its predecessor, Night of the Living Dead. Romero took his original premise and zombie mythology and expanded it. He took his ideas to a new level with this story showcasing the wider effects of the outbreak. For example, the police raid on the hotel. We saw how the authorities would handle such a situation with their use of deadly force. And you know, before doing some research online, I assumed that the film had been made on a budget of maybe 3 to 4 million. Finding out that the budget was actually less than 1 million, I mean, that really surprised me. That demonstrates just how competent of a director George A. Romero was. And so, dislikes for Dawn of the Dead 1978. My main dislike for this movie would be the original Romero score that he used for the film. Now, don't get me wrong, the score does its job in places, and who doesn't love the end credit scene? It's very memorable, and mixing such kooky themes with some of the dark, violent imagery gave the film a very dreamlike vibe, and you know, I can't fault that. But there were some musical cues in the film that felt really dated, even for a movie from the late 70s. From what I've read online, Romero in post-production used music from a stock library. And I feel exactly the same way with Romero's first zombie film, Night of the Living Dead. That score as well was at times just overly dramatic when it didn't need to be. But I give that movie a pass, given it was a black and white 60s movie. With the Dawn of the Dead soundtrack, it just wasn't much of an improvement. And you know, I think Dawn of the Dead is far superior to Night of the Living Dead in so many different ways. But with the soundtrack, I just wasn't that impressed. You know, I could be wrong, but I get the impression that the whole music element wasn't really a major factor for Romero until he got into the post-production phase. Also, having seen the alternate D'Argento version with the additional Goblin music, the theatrical version just lacks for me. Another dislike I wanted to mention was the blue and grey makeup used for the zombies. At times it felt a little over the top, and yeah, I just thought, you know, they could have done a bit better, surely. It's weird because throughout the film we see some really cool makeup effects on specific zombies. Like, for example, when we see Roger finally turn into one of the undead and we see his body rise up from the bed. His decrepit white face, the whole makeup, it looked brilliant. I don't want to be too critical on that because I think it may have come down to, budgetary reasons. We've got so many extras. Let's just put them all in grey and blue makeup, whatever it is, whatever works, right? So it seems that the producers clearly focused their efforts on key zombie characters while giving everyone else a more default grey complexion. And with the film also being now transferred to HD 4K, there are certain moments in the film you can clearly see the kind of poor makeup effects. And so, ratings for Dawn of the Dead. Going to be rating this movie a strong 7.5 out of 10. For me, Dawn of the Dead is a movie that I continually revisit every couple of years. It's extremely rewatchable and no doubt one of the very best zombie movies ever produced. Night of the Living Dead and Romero's later sequel, Day of the Dead, were much darker and despondent. This movie, on the other hand, has a way more vibrant and energetic feel to it, which was very refreshing for the genre. This may sound harsh, but Romero in his later years could only dream of producing a movie this good. It's an excellent horror movie, a superior sequel, and a movie that I highly recommend. I'm sure many of you guys have seen this movie. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. That is all from me today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. I will be back very soon with more cult movie reviews. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.